meeting of the neighborhood forum to order. If you're one of the community forum members here, I would encourage you to be recognized by the moderator before speaking, to turn on your microphone, as I just did somewhat belatedly, to state your name, I'm Bert Lindler, and to speak clearly 4 to 5 inches from the microphone. So, we'll begin with a roll call of the neighborhood council, starting on my extreme left.
Teresa Connor, Lewis and Clark.
Doug Grimm, Upper Rattlesnake.
Cora Shepard, Moose Can Gully.
Nick Shantz, River Road.
Mike Jakubczyk, University.
Ed Mulder, Riverfront Neighborhood.
Mark McClemens, Franklin Fort.
Bert Lindler, Grand Creek.
Jeff Stevens, South 39th Street.
Anthony Joe, Captain John Mullen.
Marisa Phillips, Heart of Missoula.
Jack Walton, Miller Creek.
Mark Foss, South Cape Triangle.
Do we have a quorum?
We have a quorum.
Thank you. With that, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Doug Grimm, I move that we adopt the agenda.
Jack Walton, Miller Creek, second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of February 22nd?
Jack Walton, Miller Creek, makes the motion. So moved.
Doug Grimm, second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. At this point in the meeting, we ask if there's any public comment on non-agenda items. Anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on anything that's not on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move into the agenda. Mark Thane from Missoula County Public Schools is here this evening and will be discussing operations levies on the May ballot. Yes.
I'm sorry, Joel is here.
Oh, Jolie, okay, excuse me.
Do you want to go first? You've
No,
been working all day.
My apologies. Joel Baird from MCAT is going to talk to us about a community needs assessment for MCAT. Thank you, Joel.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all for having me. I'm Joel Baird, the General Manager of Missoula Community Access Television, the outfit that has been recording your meetings for the last decade or so. I've been granted a little time to come before you to enlist your help in perhaps participating in upcoming focus groups. These focus groups are going to be held April 3rd and 4th at the Missoula Public Library, and there are 2 focus groups in the afternoon of Tuesday and Wednesday, an earlier morning one, and a Tuesday evening one. They have been organized loosely into various areas of interest. For instance, on Tuesday, April 3rd from 2 to 4, there'll be a focus group to which local government, business, technology, department heads of the city, staff, and elected officials are invited. I think Jane is going to that one. So if you could, well, maybe some of you might elect to do so. I've got some handouts that would direct you to where you go online and register. It's not too invasive. It asks maybe your name and your email address. Now, why are we having the focus groups? I've got handouts to give you, but I'll talk about it briefly, and then maybe you want to ask me questions about it. So MCAT, Missoula Community Access Television, operates in 3 areas in service to the community. One is for the public, another is for educators and educational interests, and a third one is for the government. And that acronym we know as PEG, Television Service to Local Community. So there's 3 areas in which we operate, right? And it would be good to know how we could improve service in each area. So that's why people interested in community, like yourselves, and people who know other people interested in community would be really good candidates to invite to these focus groups. What we're trying to do is put together a 10-year visioning plan, because MCAT and the city of Missoula are going to have a community needs assessment document that we will use when the city negotiates with Charter Cable for a 10-year agreement to rent the public right-of-way, that's all the cables are on, and that rental agreement provides income for MCAT services. So we want to be sure to do due diligence in meeting our obligation for contract negotiations with the cable company. How do we do that? One of the most important ways is getting public input from people like yourselves who are interested in the future of Missoula, who find that communication is probably a better thing to do than not, and who have 2 hours of time to blow on a Wednesday or Tuesday afternoon. But that may not be you, so there is a Tuesday evening session. The person conducting the session is a professional in the area of public access television stations like MCAT. Her name is Sue Buskey. She's been doing this kind of work for about 30 years, and she hasn't let it get dull. She's very amusing. She's very insightful. She is not going to bore you or patronize you should you decide to dedicate your time. So I hope that's kind of clear. MCAT is funded by a contract which is expiring at the end of the year. Part of this contract negotiation is creating a community needs assessment from public input, so it behooves us to go around and invite people to these focus groups we've set up for early next month. So that's about all I have to say about it, but I certainly entertain questions if you had it.
Any questions?
Okay, well, thank you for your time. While Mark comes up, I'm going to try to unobtrusively, or should I just give you, Jane? Yeah. You know, instead of running around with
That'd
me.
be good.
All right, thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Joel.
Some of you do attend.
And I've already introduced Mark Thane from Missoula County Public Schools, the superintendent. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here again. As you may know, state law affords that school elections are conducted in May each year, which is a little bit out of cycle with other elections. Missoula County Public Schools is in a somewhat fortunate and maybe enviable position in a couple regards. First of all, our elementary district, which serves largely the city proper with our elementary and middle schools, has experienced a significant enrollment increase. We are up 611 students since 2011. That's about a full elementary school worth of students. That same enrollment increase has begun to hit our high school district. In the last 3 years, our high school district is up 104 students. So of course that means a number of things. One of the things that it means is our budgets continue to be a bit of a challenge for us. And if you paid attention to the legislature, you know that like many other entities, we've faced challenge with changing landscape legislatively. With that, Missoula County Public Schools is subject to the state funding formula. Montana is somewhat unique in that our state constitution guarantees equity to the opportunity for education in the state of Montana. So the state essentially gives us a formula and says all school districts must meet a minimum threshold with their budget, but you have capacity, if your community supports you, to go above that to create a little more budget capacity. I have the good fortune of sitting on the Missoula Economic Partnership Board. And I was invited to do that not because I have any great insight into economic development, but as the economic partnership looked to bring entities in Missoula job creation, there were two questions that often surfaced. One is, if I relocate to Missoula, will we have a ready workforce that can meet my workforce needs? And the second is, if we relocate our business to Missoula, will the children of our families that we locate to Missoula have good educational opportunities? So I would like to answer yes to both of those questions. We believe in creating a system for college and career readiness for our graduates, and obviously high-quality education and programming for the students that we serve. So there will be 2 requests on the May ballot. We are 2 separate districts by law. Our K-8 district will have a request on the ballot for a mill levy in the amount of $305,000. The high school district will have a levy on the ballot in the amount of $169,000. Somewhat odd figures, but again, it comes as a result of the state funding formula. School funding is a little bit complicated. We get funding from the state, we get from the federal government in block grants that flow through the state. We have some funds that are permissively levied locally, and then we have voted levies. So even though we have these 2 levies, I want to talk about the total tax impact on the Missoula community. So if the voters see fit to pass the elementary levy, it will be worded on the ballot such that $305,000 would cost the owner of a home with an assessed property value of $200,000, $7.07 per year. The high school district, that same $200,000 home would have a tax impact of $2.25 per year. That's how it'll be listed on the ballot. We never get out in front of the community, though, and tell you when taxes are going down. And I have the pleasure tonight to tell you that that's actually happening in the high school district. So we have, over history, passed some initiatives that are actually coming off the tax rolls now. So in our high school district, if the community, even if the community supports this increased request for $169,000, the tax bill on a $200,000 assessed property would actually go down $4.16 next year. On the elementary district, there would still be a tax increase, and that would be $9 per year. If you're one of the many residents that lives in both our districts, is served by the K-12 district, the total tax impact of both levies on your tax bill next year would be $5.38 for every $200,000 of assessed property value. So we're talking a little less than 50 cents a month. About 90% of our budget is salary and benefits for staff. We're a people-intensive industry. It's teachers in front of the classrooms. We right now have 18 classrooms in our elementary district that exceed state accreditation standard because we've been in a growth cycle. We won't be able to tackle all of those next year, but part of our budget request is to fund 5 additional classroom teaching positions next year. So with that, I don't know if anyone has questions, but we're, again, just trying to get the word out in front of the taxpayers, be as transparent as we can be. And we would appreciate if you don't have questions today, or if the viewing audience has questions, they can simply call our office. We'd be happy to talk to anyone.
I have one question. What is the date of the election?
The election is Tuesday, May 8th. It will be an all-mail ballot. Excuse me, so the ballots will go out the week of April 14th. Thank you. Any additional questions? Well, I appreciate the opportunity just to get the word out. Thank you.
Thanks for keeping those kids educated.
We'll work on it.
Katie Cleats and Shane Stack are going to discuss the Russell Street and Van Buren Interchange projects, which I'm sure will draw a question or two.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you for having us. Thank you, Shane. I am Katie Cleats. I am an account executive with Big Sky Public Relations. So our firm has been hired by the generous folks at MDT to help with all of the public engagement and involvement for a few of the projects happening in the Missoula urban area. As somewhat engaged members of your community, you've probably heard of the Russell Street Bridge, maybe been over it a couple times. That bridge is in need of some serious work, and after about 50 years after being built, we are at the point of reconstruction and building a new bridge. So Shane is going to give you an overview of that project and also of the Van Buren Street interchange over here, where we will be having 2 roundabouts and a sound wall installation. So My firm has been out with MDT to some of the more affected project adjacent neighborhoods to share some of these updates, and Jane and Karen were kind enough to extend the invitation for us to come tonight to provide a high-level overview of the projects and answer any specific questions that you have. So my role specifically in these projects is to help manage the communications. So what Shane's pulling up right now are actually some boards that we had for our open house of the Russell Street project that we had on Monday. We had a great turnout. So those are the types of opportunities that we help to involve. And then the programs that you have in front of you, so we have a brochure and some magnets. These are all things, forms of communication that we have to help the community stay involved and engaged as much as possible. So if you have questions throughout the process, or folks in your communities want to know more, these are the best opportunities on the back to be engaged, and I'm happy to help however I can. So I basically just wanted to introduce myself and say that I'm here to help however I possibly can as we get moving forward in construction, while these amazing folks are out building bridges and roadways. So with that, I'll turn it maybe over to Shane.
And I would show you all the wonderful displays, but they are not working at all. But I guess while I wait for those to potentially load at some point, I can just talk about, I guess, a little bit about the scope first of Russell Street. The plan right now is to reconstruct a portion of Russell Street starting at the intersection with Broadway, headed south all the way to Dakota. If you're not familiar with Dakota, that is where the maybe JJ's Used Cars is, and where the Source Gym is, where the Milwaukee Trail Crossing is in that area as well. So that's the plan, is to reconstruct. That would essentially become a 5-lane system. Right now it's a 3-lane system. So that's the kind of the big picture. Maybe I can try to load this this project roll plot again. I'm sorry, what? Oh, maybe I will try to put it on the desktop. Yeah. They're very large files too.
And these materials, just for general knowledge, are also on the project web pages, which are on these magnets in case you want to review them later as well.
Gosh.
Shoot.
I'll try to get this one out there too. So schedule, I can talk a little bit about schedule too while this is loading. So the plan right now is to reconstruct the eastern half of Russell Street first. And you'll probably start to see, well, you've already, if you drive up and down that road right now, there is some yellow equipment out there moving dirt along the sides of the roadway. They haven't really got into the middle of Russell Street yet. They will start to get a little bit more aggressive, probably more around mid-April. That's the state of Montana's kind of construction time starts around April 15th. That's when that contractor really has to start contract time. Okay, that's when we start measuring. We've given them so many days to finish this project, and that's when time starts for them. So that's when they can start getting after work in the middle of the road. So you will see a lot more work probably around that time. I would just say, big picture, they'll get the first half of the structure on the eastern half built by probably December, January. That's the plan. That eastern half of the roadway will be built. At that same time, we'll get traffic switched over. And then they will start, probably call it January, February of 2019, they will start to demo the existing bridge. So we'll keep traffic on that existing bridge while they build the first half of the structure all this summer. So as you're driving across that old structure, you can watch them slowly build this first half. It'll basically take all into that next year to get the second half constructed. The nice thing though is while they're building that second half next summer, you should be up on new pavement instead of the old potholed pavement. So that's a bonus. So you're looking at 2 summers of construction. It's 2 seasons. I guess that kind of covers schedule. A little more detail schedule, what to expect in these coming weeks. They're going to start doing, right now they're working on irrigation kind of on the sides. They'll probably start to do some mainline crossovers perpendicular to the road at Wyoming Street, Montana Street, Idaho Street. So you might see some closures of some lanes at that point in time, but we will always have 2 lanes open, right? Right now it's a 3-lane system, so you can make those left turns. There are probably going to be times during construction where left turns are either going to be very difficult or they're not going to be allowed. We will probably just see how traffic flows during the process and make adjustments as we go. So in the next few weeks, you'll probably see some of those crossings being built on with irrigation. Wyoming Street, early in April, you'll probably see a 2-week closure of Wyoming Street on the eastern side between Russell Street and Inez, roughly. They've got to get a water line put in, and they're also going to be doing some irrigation work. So that's probably going to be around a 2-week process. So I think big picture, that's what you can expect. And like I said, mid-April, you will probably see them really start going, get traffic shifted over to that western side, and then just start doing a lot of demo on the eastern side and start building. So with that, that gives you an idea of schedule. I can show you, if you are interested, we'll just kind of roll down and kind of almost drive down the road, if you will. So this is the intersection of Broadway and Russell Street. So as you head south, you'll notice we'll have 2 lanes instead of 1 lane headed southbound, multiple lanes northbound. You'll have dual lefts, 1 through, and a right turn lane. As you get towards the bridge is going to be a 5-lane system. So there's, again, 2 lanes southbound, and it'll be 3 lanes northbound. This will be kind of the through lane, and these will be again, rolling into those 2 lefts. I guess one interesting thing I would say about this is that we will have a very wide facility on the outside of the bridge. I believe they're 12 feet wide on either side that will accommodate non-motorized, a mix of cyclists and pedestrians. So that's a very wide structure compared to, I don't know if you notice when you drive across there today, there's probably a 3-foot sidewalk, if that, and what's interesting is you have a lot of pedestrians out there going different directions, and I think it gets uncomfortable at times. So, trees, quite a few trees planted with the project. We have a raised bike lane off of the bridge, so if you're a cyclist, you'll be on this raised bike lane, and then it'll drop down to road grade at intersections, and then back up on the back of the curb. And it'll really, if you're familiar with North Higgins, kind of operates similar to that. Very, very similar to that. There's some bus stops, so this is a bus stop here. This is River Road. One thing I'll tell you about River Road intersection is that will be a right-in, right-out only. You will no longer be able to make lefts into River Road or lefts out of River Road. Again, a bus stop over here in front of Missoula Car and Truck. This is the intersection with Idaho. There will be a left turn in. You will be able to make left turns out of Idaho. Montana Street, same thing, full movement intersection. I think one of the big changes that you'll notice is at Wyoming, this intersection will be signalized now. So if you've ever waited to make a left turn at Wyoming, and you could clock it with a sundial probably if you're trying to make that move, you would understand how important that is to have that signal there for those left turns. Yeah, go ahead.
Nick Shantz, River Road. I do that every day. When is that light going to go in? And have there been any studies about how that traffic at Wyoming is going to change when River Road becomes less of an option for folks?
So, a couple things. The signal will be, my guess, is going to be operational not this summer. It's going to be next summer because we won't have, we're not going to have the infrastructure in on that western side. Knife River is the road contractor, and there is potential that they might get all the road work done, but I would say that's highly unlikely. I think they're going to have a lot of work this summer elsewhere, and they have enough contract time to just do half here on that eastern side and then finish the other half. So my guess is a completed signal is not this summer, but the following summer. What we will have, though, more than likely, we'll have temporary signals up during construction. So that'll be accommodated, hopefully. Again, remember when I was telling you about those left turns and those left turn restrictions? We'll see how traffic control works, and things will be adjusted as we go. But
when will that left hand restriction at River Road go?
I don't know. And that's the thing, as they start to get into construction and get traffic, I haven't even seen a traffic control plan from them, and as far as the road work, we've got some traffic control plans for pedestrian and non-motorized to get around, but I haven't seen a traffic control plan yet. But essentially what they'll do is there's what's called a two-way left-hand turn lane. That middle left turn lane will essentially become a through lane. The southbound through lane will stay the southbound. The left turn lane becomes just a really long northbound turn or northbound lane at that point. The northbound that's existing today, that's going to get demoed. So, and I don't know how far they'll push traffic over to the west either. So, another big feature is Milwaukee Trail will go underground now. I believe that is scheduled to be open August, September, so of this summer. So that will be one nice feature. As construction is happening, this trail crossing is going to be closed. We will route traffic. We'll have detour routes. I believe the major one is going to be along Wyoming Street. So if you're familiar with Milwaukee Trail, you get onto Catlin, or you kind of ride down Catlin or walk down Catlin for a short distance, and then you cut into the Corso apartment area. Well, instead of crossing over into the Corso, you'll end up just going all the way down to Wyoming Street, go along Wyoming Street all the way down to, there's a trail, I don't know if you're familiar with the mental health buildings right there. There's a trail that goes kind of in between those buildings and connects back up with the trail. So that's going to be the temporary detour for the summer. So. And I think that kind of covers the major items on Russell Street. You want to add anything, Katie? Did I cover? Okay. All right.
Jane has a question.
Okay, Jane.
Could you tell us what the width of the current bridge is compared to the new bridge?
I don't know the exact width of the new structure. I could look at it, but the driving lanes are 12 feet wide. The sidewalks are probably 3 feet. So you're looking at 30 feet total width, outside rail to outside rail on the new structure. New structure, you're going to have 60 feet of driving lane, plus or minus, with another 24 feet, so 84-ish. I did real quick math for you. So more than double. I mean, it's darn near triple the width of the existing structure.
Yes, are there going to be new traffic signal systems installed at the intersection of Russell and Broadway and a new traffic signal control box?
So yeah, there's going to be, yes, improvements to the intersection with Broadway and Russell. There's quite a bit of change going on here. So yeah, there's going to be new infrastructure at Broadway and Russell. This is somewhat temporary too. Temporary in the sense that once we reconstruct Russell Street all the way to Mount, the next step would be to, and if you've ever looked at the environmental document that has the full scope of this project, there's going to be more work on Broadway that still has to be done, and there's also some more work on Russell Street further to the north. This actually, all this in here is in city right-of-way, and that will actually be used for more road improvements, more pet facilities, things like that. So, but we are we are a few years away from reaching that portion of this overall larger project.
Yeah, one more question. Has there been any long-term discussion about connecting Russell Street to the interstate?
So I know there are folks that have asked that question. I know it's been discussed informally in certain circles. The Department of Transportation does not have a plan to connect Russell Street to the interstate. But I know there's interest in doing that.
So this first project is going to go from Broadway to Dakota Street?
Correct.
And then from Dakota to Mount in future years?
Yeah, and so let's talk about that a little bit.
Thank you.
Right now, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with the MPO or how federal aid works within the community of Missoula, but the MPO, which is a metropolitan planning organization, I'll probably give you guys a lot of alphabet soup, so if you have any questions about what an MPO is or whatever letters I'm telling you, just feel free to ask. But the MPO gets around $1.7 million annually to spend on their transportation system on the federal aid routes in the Missoula area. So Russell Street's a $29 million job. This particular component is a $29 million job. And so if you do the math on how many years a community's got to save up to get there, it takes a while, right? So to get from Dakota to Mount, we figured it's probably in the neighborhood of 20 to 22 years given the $1.7 million per year. We are going to have to explore other funding options if we want to get Russell Street completed in a reasonable amount of time, because given the congestion that's there today and the condition of the roadway, we can't wait for 20 years. So I think it's good that we're going to be able to, in the next 2 years, get this first segment done, and I think that'll hopefully garner some support from the community to continue on to Mount.
In the future phases you're talking about, is there a plan for either an overcrossing or undercrossing on the Bitterroot Trail as it crosses Russell?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I did bring the roll plot. If you guys are interested, I can show you that southern segment, up to you. But there is a plan. In the environmental document, there is a grade separated crossing for the Bitterroot Trail. Like the bridge over Reserve Street, we will have a similar structure over Russell Street. So one of the interesting things, we did look at some different options about, do you go underground, do you go over, can you adjust the grade of the roadway? With the rail line being there, the rail actually had to stay at the same grade, so we had to match the existing road grade at that specific location so that we weren't changing the railroad grades at all, if that makes sense. So that kind of kept our options very limited as far as what we could do with non-motorized. So we ended up having to go over, but yeah, there will be grade separated. All right. You want to hear about Van Buren?
I sure am waiting for Van Buren.
So it's 7:32. We were supposed to start at 7:35, I think. Is that right?
I think so. Are we okay?
All right.
Sorry, we're kind of talkers.
So maybe I'll try that trick with saving this to the... I've got an older presentation that will hopefully open up. There we go. Just to give you an idea of what it'll look like. So I've got some images that zoom in, but I just wanted to use this just to give you a big picture of what changes will be made. So this being Broadway, this being Van Buren, the major scope is to construct 2 roundabouts at each of the on and off ramps, eastbound, westbound, on and off ramp intersections with Van Buren. So a little bit of history, since I have some time. We did look at I-90, and this was, gosh, in the probably early to mid-2000s. And we had quite a growth spurt in the community at that time, and as an agency, we looked at that and said, what's I-90 going to look like in the next 20, 30, 40 years, and should we be concerned? So we analyzed from probably just west of the Y, all the way towards Bonner, and looked at what were the deficiencies of the interstate, what needed to be addressed, and did we have the capacity to handle the future growth in the community over that next 30 years? What we found is that we did have the capacity on the interstate. We had two interchanges, Van Buren and Orange Street, that we were having some congestion issues. And so the next phase of that study was, how do you address those intersections? We went to the public. Overwhelmingly, we were told, let's do roundabouts, which I would tell you, having proposed roundabouts as an intersection solution in other communities, most of the time, you see this 70, I'll call it 75-25. 25% of the population will say a roundabout's a heck of a good idea, let's build it. 75% says no way. In this community was interesting, and this was, again, this was in probably the mid-2000s. Missoula, the community of Missoula said, let's do roundabouts, which I found, interesting. And here we are, fast forward, 10, 15 years, and I think the community, I think we still get support for roundabouts. In fact, I haven't heard anything negative about the Orange Street roundabout yet, as far as how it operates. So I'm pleased that that's the direction we're going. So that second phase, the community said, we don't want signals, we want roundabouts, and we gave them the option of, do you want a double lane roundabout or a single lane roundabout? And they said, hey, let's just do single lane. We also analyzed with that study, how would a signal operate versus a roundabout? Because we were addressing capacity issues. We wanted to make sure that the roundabout was going to provide the capacity necessary so that it was going to be able to handle the traffic flow in the next 20, 30 years. What we found was that the roundabout probably operated better than a signal, and we model those, and we can, with fairly reasonable results, come close to what really happens in the real world. So we were very comfortable installing single lane roundabouts. So I'll tell you one of the major challenges we had, and I can zoom into this. We can get into some, I guess, a bigger picture of this, but I think the bigger challenge was this movement here, because you do have the dual left turn lane off of Broadway onto Van Buren. We looked at, and one of the questions for us on a regular basis was, can't we just make that a single left and have a single traffic lane northbound into the roundabout? And we modeled that, and we had traffic backing up onto Broadway, onto Madison, over the Madison Street Bridge, into the university. And I think those were even current conditions, right? So we said, that's a good idea, and it makes sense for roundabout operations, but in this particular case, we're going to have to pass on that and make sure that we accommodate the traffic that's there. So why that's a challenge, I'll show you in I guess when I can, I'll go to the next few slides. See if I can, yeah, let's look at this one here. So what that does is, if you are northbound on a bicycle, for instance, we have a bike lane, and that bike lane will end right about this area right here. So we've got two options for cyclists. The cyclists, and these funky little white dots, those are actually pavement markings that would show a shared lane marking, and we have a lot of those all over the community. So those are those bikes with I'll call them the sergeant stripes, right? The 3 up, 3 down, right in the middle of the road. So what all that indicates is that the cyclist can ride in the middle of the lane. Well, if you've ever biked, going from a bike lane out into a middle of a lane and trying to weave, because you are going to have to weave now to get into this roundabout. If you follow my cursor, we'll start down here. If you're in the bike lane, now you got to weave across traffic and get into the roundabout. So this weave across this lane is going to be very challenging. We recognize that. So one of the solutions that we have is we've put a depressed curb right here. So a lay-down curb. So a cyclist can make the choice to get up on this shared use path. It's about 8 feet wide, and they can ride on the shared use path and cross here, two-stage crossing. This crossing here will have what's called a rapid rectangular flashing beacon. Rider or pedestrian will push the button, it flashes, lets drivers know that there are users that are non-motorized that are going to cross right here. Then they will be able to ride through the median or walk through the median and then cross in this area and continue north. So that was probably the most challenging piece, I would say, with this whole project. So I guess, any questions on that? I'll keep moving forward on this if there's any questions.
Nick Schunter, how much impact does this have on like folks on Broadway? They're just trying to go straight.
As far as during construction or after?
During construction.
There's potential you may see a little bit of delay. The plan right now during construction, and let me go back a few slides. The plan right now during construction, big picture, the contractor has a notice to proceed mid-April. The first part of work, and we've broken it down into 4 phases. So phase 1 would essentially be, there's retaining walls in this area that they would build to build these shared use paths. So we have shared use paths on both sides. There's also a large retaining wall right here around this corner. In order for us to get traffic cutting around here, we had to cut into this hillside a little bit, so there's going to be a pretty massive retaining wall there. There's going to be a real small retaining wall in this area. So I think we have in all like 4 retaining walls with the project. So they would start with retaining walls and a few other odds and ends. In early June, per contract, they're required to start the roundabout construction. They are allowed to start construction sooner if they so choose, but they have to get it rolling by June. Right now, and I don't know how the contractor will do it, we have a solution that we believe will work. We had a solution for Orange Street. The contractor used that. I will tell you, it is very rare that we come up with a phasing plan that the contractor uses. Most of the time, we just make sure that it's doable, and they do it a lot better. But Orange Street was a challenge, and so what I would imagine you'll see is they will probably follow. But what we have in the contract is they have basically 35 days to build this half, and it's broken down into, I believe, 25 days for this first half, and then another 14 days for this next half. They are calendar days, so a lot of times we use working days for our contracts. Those are calendar days, so they start in June. They're done like in July. Right? They have to be done in July. So then traffic, during the construction of this half, traffic will be on this side. You'll have 2 lanes, one lane northbound, 1 lane southbound. So we have enough room to get that done through here. So once they have this first half built, we'll switch traffic over, so they're going to be going around the roundabout, northbound and southbound on that half. If that makes sense, right? So you're kind of just going half the roundabout. Then they will build the second half, and I think this again is 21 days for this half and 14 days for this half. There will more than likely be closures, temporary closures of each one of these ramps. We do have some incentives in this contract. I think every day that they are done ahead of schedule on the roundabout construction, they're getting around $11,000 per day, right? So we give them a pretty fancy carrot. I think they can get up to like 8 days of incentive funding. But we've also given them a stick. Every day that they don't get it done, they owe us $11,000. So we've given them some incentive and a stick, and we hope that helps. In addition, every day that these ramps are closed, there's a disincentive. They owe us some money for every day that ramp's closed. So we've given them some incentive to get this done quickly and get it done in such a manner that the interchange can remain open as much as possible, if that makes sense. So let's talk a little bit, I guess, about non-motorized too, unless there are any questions about that. Yeah.
I just had a question about unmotorized. Is the shared path on the same level or raised?
Good question. Yeah, so let's talk about the non-motorized. So we will have a shared use path on both sides. If you follow my cursor, this eastern side, there's a shared use path that goes all the way up and eventually ties into the sidewalk up here. So you'll tie into the sidewalk on Broadway, so there's a connection all the way through the interchange. Similarly, on the western side, you'll have a 12-foot instead of an 8-foot that runs along kind of a similar route. Once we get to this point, there's already a path. This path that exists today along Van Buren and to the intersection of Broadway, that is not going to change, nor is the trail that goes to the bridge. We are just going to connect up to that particular trail. If you remember, I told you we're going to have a little ramp on this eastern side for cyclists to get out of the bike lane and up onto the path. We also have a ramp on this side, so if you are riding through the roundabout and you want to go on the Rux Trail and cross that bridge, you'll be able to ride up onto the shared use path and then make that maneuver instead of having to jump up a curb. So one other thing on non-motorized, we are building from right here at the tennis court. We're going to build a shared use path that goes all the way to just to the bridge, right? So it's going to be on the eastern end of the bridge. So we almost connect to Greeno Park. You'll be able to cross the street and get on the sidewalk and get into Greeno Park from there. But certainly infrastructure that isn't there today, if the city so chooses, they can enhance that connection in the future. So I think that covers non-motorized.
Will there be access during construction?
Oh, good one. Yes. So as they're building, obviously as they're building this half will remain open. So we'll make sure that pedestrians have a route that they can get through. It'll likely match the route that they have today for the first half. That second half, they'll obviously have a new path on that eastern side to get through. Cyclists, during construction, I would just say cyclists, if you want to ride through this interchange under construction, you are more than welcome to. You're probably going to have to ride with traffic or get up on the sidewalk or get a different route. The nice thing is we do have the Rux. It's not a very long route to get over to like Monroe, loop over, go across the railroad tracks, and then cross the bridge again and get onto the path here and get back onto Van Buren. So there are other routes. In fact, actually, with the Madison Street Bridge, we built a trail from the roadside down that connects almost to the underbridge now too. So there's some additional routes that have been created that might become useful while this project is under construction.
Yes, Jeff Stevens. How many hours a day and how many days a week will the contractor have to work in order to meet your deadline on construction of the roundabouts?
Well, you'd have to do math. I can't do that kind of math with the information I have. So you're looking at 35 days and 35 days for a total of 70 days. Multiply that by 24.
So will it be authorized to work more than 5 days a week and in the evenings and to get this completed?
Good question. I have to look at the contract. I can't remember offhand. I'll tell you, Russell Street, they are required to work, I think, not past 7 p.m. and I think their start hour is 7 a.m. Does that sound right? Yeah. So, but what we have in the contract is they have the ability, if approved by the city and the project manager, they can change those hours and work later into the night. The issue is we're trying to prevent noise. So I think we have the same restriction on this one, is 7 to 7 would be my guess. I'd have to look at the contract. I just can't remember.
Doug Grimm, Upper Rattlesnake. You haven't talked about the noise wall.
Yeah, let's talk about the noise wall. Good segue. I don't know if we have, I think there's some good images here. Let's see. So let's just start on the eastern end. This is the alignment of the noise wall. So this is kind of this big park area as if you're on the interstate headed westbound and you're going to exit onto Van Buren. Here's the exit ramp right here. So here's the chain link fence. If you're familiar with the area, it ends about here, and then there kind of heads to the east further. But this chain link fence really goes around this call it a park area. So one of the things that we were going to do originally was just kind of mirror that chain link fence. We were going to put a noise wall right along the back of the sidewalk. And one of the comments we received was, gosh, can you make it look a little nicer? And can you do some things to spruce it up a little bit? And so it made sense to try to utilize some of this open space more for the neighborhood rather than have it unusable and out there just as somebody to look at as they drive by at 75 miles an hour. So we made some changes to the noise wall, and I think those were good changes. We tried to avoid, as this weave goes through here, what we tried to do was avoid as many trees as we possibly could, but even doing that, we're still going to have to remove some trees. So these numbers here just indicate the height. So the top of the noise wall at this point will be 14 feet above existing ground out there today. This is 8 to 14 feet. So if you look at a profile of the wall, and I've got the plans for the noise wall, it does a lot of has a lot of vertical change in it. So it's not a straight flat wall. So that's kind of the alignment in this area. We'll continue as you continue to the west. What we'll have is the noise wall will end kind of partway down the existing westbound exit ramp. We will also tie in the fence to that wall. Okay, this chain link fence will go away, so that'll open up that space. Similarly, on that far eastern end, we'll tie the chain link fence to the wall. Up on top now, I guess if you were not going to exit and you kept driving, what you would see is a 12-foot wall. It's a concrete wall, and it would end here. Once we get to the bridge, it becomes clear glass. Why it is clear glass is because it is lightweight. One of the challenges we had is you've got an old structure. If we were going to mount a large chunk of concrete, because this is 12 feet tall, that's a heavy load on the existing structure, right? So the bridge itself has a certain amount of capacity for what's called dead load, like the weight of the structure itself. Without having to do a bunch of bridge work, we really couldn't put a large concrete wall up there. So the solution was glass, because it's very lightweight. It's been done in other communities, works quite well, blocks the sound, so it's effective. So you'll have on top of the bridge structure just a short segment of glass. Let's see. That's kind of, I guess, just an image of the stone itself. It's not going to be colored like this. This is kind of a rendering of what that wall could look like. So continuing on to the west, if you remember, we had the glass wall, and it ends right at the end of the bridge. So we would continue with that concrete wall from there to the Gore area. One of the things I will tell you that we changed is the wall no longer goes clear out to here. What it does do is it ends right in here. If you're from the Rattlesnake and you've ever tried to get out of the Rattlesnake and head westbound on the interstate, you'll know that merge is fun at best. So what we tried to do is end that noise wall quite a bit sooner so that people have sight distance as they merge up onto traffic onto the I-90. And then this last segment is, again, it's 10 feet tall, starts right around the tennis court, and it basically ties right into the bridge over the Rattlesnake. So I guess one other thing I would say is the fence, that's this yellow fence you can see. We'll tie that fence in over here as well onto the noise wall, and we'll tie the fence in to the noise wall here, so that opens up this area a little bit more. It's not so restrictive. So I think the noise wall I kind of showed you. Let me just. Do you want to know what it looks like? So I kind of showed you that Riverstone look. The whole idea was to get more of a Riverstone rock look, and this would be what the interstate side would look like, except again, not colored. And this is just a rendering. It will not look exactly like this, just to give you an idea of what it could look like. I think, let me show you a picture though, and I've been asked about the back side of the wall and what that would look like. Hopefully this will open up from the... Okay, I'll drag it here. There we go. So Missoula, we worked with Missoula Concrete to kind of work on the design of this wall. So I showed you that Riverstone look that would be on the interstate side. And how they do that is they have a large form that lays flat on the ground. They fill it with concrete, and it has what's called a form liner. That form liner has a kind of a reverse shape of that Riverstone, right? So as that cement cures, when they lift the wall out of the form and they peel that form liner off, looks like river rock. The tough part is we can't do form liners on both sides. They have not invented a way, or at least a reasonable way, to have form liners on both sides. So what Missoula Concrete did is they came up with this kind of a rough textured look, and for a reasonable cost we can texture this backside, and it's hard to tell, but it is actually stained. It's kind of an orange-red color. I would equate it to more of like a Sedona desert look, if you will. But it's not going to be flat gray concrete. It's going to be textured. We did look at several different texture options that they could do, and this was probably the best looking one. So that's what the backside will look like as best they can. Remember, this is all hand work. This is more artistic work. It will probably not look exactly like this, but pretty close. So I think that covers the noise wall. Is that?
Doug Grimm, Upper Rattlesnake. How are you going to finish the concrete so that spray paint can be taken off easily?
Yes, we've got a product in the contract that it's an anti-graffiti coating that we coat these with, and so that if somebody does vandalize the wall, it's fairly easy to remove. I think this is going to be the second or third noise wall that we've constructed. This is for certain the second noise wall in our district. We've built several up in Kalispell, on the Kalispell bypass, and we have had graffiti on that wall, and we've had good luck with graffiti removal with the coating.
Well, Doug Grimm, did you have much to do with the Madison Street Bridge?
I don't know. Depends if you like it or not.
Well, while it was being built, I had to drive over it a couple times every day. And then I noticed, why are all the little ridges in the surface of the concrete? And then I saw it before wintertime came, that you put a finish coat on that just made it wonderful. And I thought, this is a fantastic bridge.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Yeah, that finish coat, what's interesting is the deck itself was finished. We've been trying to put a deck seal on our bridge decks, mainly for the simple fact that we're using we're using high strength concrete, and with curing of high strength concrete we end up with some cracking, and all that does is seal cracks. So and it adds some friction, but it certainly smoothed it out. So
Yeah, a couple more questions on the sound wall. So the River Rock side of the sound wall will be have some kind of a color in it?
It will not have a color.
Will this be plain gray then?
Plain gray.
Okay. My other question is on the sound wall glass portion. I presume that's some sort of high impact tempered glass that you're using on that?
Yeah, it's not standard glass, and it's actually pretty thick. It's quite a bit thicker than your standard glass, and I guess I've never researched the crash worthiness of that glass. It's not going to be the barrier. It won't be the barrier preventing folks from going off the structure itself.
Yeah, but if it does get hit and it shatters, is it going to shatter into small pieces that will injure someone?
Good question. I don't know what the result would be if it ever got hit.
Yeah. And my other question was, is there a possibility of etching some kind of a decorative design into that glass?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Is there a possibility of etching some kind of a decorative design into that glass?
Good question. I would say probably not with a contract, but I don't know. Maybe that's a question. Yeah, you can take that back and see what.
But the glass would be clear rather than frosted.
It's going to be clear. Yeah. So here's the challenge with what you're proposing. You want to decorate that glass. I can tell you, with just figuring out what the concrete was going to look like, was a challenge. We actually considered, and Missoula Concrete came up with some really cool ideas. They were very innovative. They have a process, and they're probably, from what I recall them saying, is they're probably the only outfit that is doing this in the United States. With their forms, instead of putting a form liner in, they have this printer, or they don't even have the printer, they have to get it from France. So they print these large sheets, they lay them in the form, they pour concrete on it. They've got chemicals that are pixelated. Those chemicals slow the curing process on those specific dots. They use a very white concrete and a very dark aggregate, right? So what they do is they pour that concrete in, they let it sit for about 12 hours, pull the concrete out, wash it off, and they end up with an image that if you stand back 20 feet, looks like the perfect picture. It's amazing. And we were actually going to do that on this project. The challenge was, could we put a picture up there that we were not going to catch grief on, right? Right? And it could have been like 5 or 6 different images down the road, right? But at the end of the day, it was going to be just easier to go simple. And a lot of times it's easier to go simple. So I think the opportunity is still available, though, not for this project, but I think that technology exists. And I think if the community wants to utilize that, I think locally here, you have an opportunity that other communities don't have. And again, according to the company, they're the only ones that have the ability to do that in this country right now. And I don't know if that's still the case, but a year ago that was the case.
So is it possible to tint that wall something other than concrete gray?
At this point, I think we're going to leave it gray and just leave it at that. It is possible in the future, I would say, but with this contract, I think we're going to leave it as is, unless you can.
That's what I know.
Other questions for Shane?
It's 8:02. We did pretty good. We're right in our 30 minutes.
Thank you, Shane.
Yeah, thanks, Bert. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Katie. Hope you get lots of response. So, the next item on the agenda is neighborhood project funds.
I just want to note for the record that Kathleen Gamar is here with the Rose Park neighborhood.
Thank you. Okay, so that's noted. And now the next item is neighborhood project funds. Where do we go with that, Jane?
No, we don't have anything for that this evening.
Now, we have a nominee for the Community Forum Leadership Team, Marissa Phillips, and so this was discussed at the last Community Forum meeting. And at this meeting, if someone chooses to nominate her, we could elect her to the Community Forum Leadership Team. Is there a motion?
This is Doug Grimm. I move that we nominate and elect Marissa Phillips to the Community Forum Leadership Team.
Is there a second?
Nick Shantz, River Road, second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Congratulations, Marissa. Any special events, Jane? Okay, we'll pass over that. Now, Jane Kelly is going to give us a staff report.
Okay, we have review and update the community forum bylaws. The community forum leadership team worked on the bylaws and voted on them, and they were on last month's agenda. And they were just there for everyone to look at and to review. So this month, they are here for any review and discussion, and next month there will be final discussion and a vote. So does anybody have any comments or on the bylaws that are attached to your packet? Okay. If there is none, then we can do a vote next month. We'll do a final review and a vote next month, so make sure to take a look at those. Ready to move on? Okay. Title 20 update. Every year, Title 20, which is zoning, is updated. And I've been asked to let you know that it's going to Planning Board for a public hearing on April the 3rd. They would like to have comments on it by the 19th of March. They expect it to go to City Council May or June. It'll go through the committees a couple of times. You can find it on Departments, Development Services, Current Projects, Planning and Updates. And I do know that one of the things that's in there is the ADUs, accessory dwelling units. One of the changes that's recommended by staff that I'm sure will be discussed is to change ADUs from conditional use to by right. And basically what that means, I don't know a lot now, so I'm not sure if I can answer any questions, but basically what that means, since they have had, I think, 24 ADUs approved, not all of them have been built, and there's been very little conditions put on any of them, and so therefore, they wouldn't have to go to City Council, hire an architect, pay a high fee. The fees would be lower to make it easier. It would lower the barriers. They're proposing that the surrounding neighbors still will be notified if there is an ADU application, but it would be approved administratively instead of going to City Council. That's one of the major things that I've seen, but there's lots of little tweaks and changes in there. They do this every year. So if you have a question, I might be able to answer it. Or maybe Heidi can. Yes, Kathleen?
Kathleen Gamar. My question is, what is an ADU?
I'll let Heidi answer that. Thank you.
So ADUs are accessory dwelling units. They are different than, say, building a new house in your backyard because the ownership can't be split, so it's still tied to the main house, and one of those is supposed to be owner-occupied. And they are currently allowed by right in most zoning districts in Missoula, and the only time they have to go through a conditional review process is in the single-family zoning districts. And so this change actually only affects, a part of our zoning and not all of it. So.
Does Karen have anything to report?
Yes, I do. MUD is having their 12th annual Earth Day celebration, and that will be on April 22nd from 12 to 4 p.m. And we will be setting up a table at that event, and if anyone, we're hoping that you will sign up to volunteer to help us at the event. We have some slots here. If you'll put your name in, you can take 1 or 2 slot times. we would love to have you come and help us get the word out on neighborhood councils.
Thank you. Is there anything further? Okay, at this point, we'll have the neighborhood council reports, and we'll start on my far left. Terry?
Connor. Oh. I think. Yeah. Okay. Teresa Connor, Lewis and Clark. And I'm here representing Colleen, who is out sick tonight. We had our neighborhood meeting last night, actually, and it went really quite well. We had probably about 30 people there, and Jane gave the history of the neighborhood councils. We had also an update on what we are looking to do with Bancroft Ponds, and right now we're in the process of doing a grant for signage for all 3 entrances to the park. There's only one, so this would let people know where the boundaries are for the park. And we're working with the city for those signs, and they will be like a welcoming sign saying that it's Bancroft Park. And we are going to also put some pet gloves to remove their waste, and ask people to do that. And the other thing we're looking at doing is stressing education for the schools in the area. We have a lot of kids that come to the park to study the wildlife and the plants and things there. And there's several endangered species and native grasses and plants, and let them understand how the whole thing works together between the reptiles all the way up to the mammals. And so the other thing we talked about were calming circles for our neighborhood. We have some issues with several streets. We're bordered on Russell and South and Higgins in the neighborhood, and then there's streets that run through there. One of them would be Bancroft and Patty Creek and stuff like that. We've had some real issues with people not paying attention to the signage for your speed limit, and it creates problems with people trying to walk to the parks and to school and to Splash Montana and stuff like that. And so we would really like to look at that. And we haven't quite, we're looking at the pricing because of the SIDs, and each calming circle is $10,000, and we're thinking maybe like about 14 of them, which is quite a large area. So we're looking at crosswalks versus calming circles versus stop signs and things like that, and what would be the better fit for the neighborhood. And we also had an election for new membership last night, and we got 3 new members. One is Kathleen Hansen, Andrew Coe, and John Wilkins, and that brings us, which was only 1 person a year ago, up to 7 full-time members. So, yay for us. But that's pretty much what went on last night. It was a good meeting. So, think about us when it comes time for our grant, please. Thank you.
This is Doug Grimm, the Upper Rattlesnake. We haven't had any meetings or much activity in the Upper Rattlesnake. But a lot of people did from the Upper and Lower Rattlesnake attend a meeting at a few days ago at the Missoula International School, which used to be called the Prescott School. And there it was explained to us that the Montana Power Dam in the in the Rattlesnake area, which I think is just close to being near the northern edge of the city limits. They want to take the power dam out. It's not a power dam. It's a dam that was put in to dam up the creek a little bit to get water through a pipeline on the side of Waterworks Hill down to the southern end of Waterworks Hill, where there was a big reservoir that supplied all of the water to Missoula until around 1970s or 80s, when they decided that there was giardia in the water. So the city decided to drill about 21 wells or so in Missoula and get the water from the underground aquifer. But there's 4 suggestions as to what to do with that land around the park, or around the dam after you take it out. And the only part that is concrete is the part where the water actually flows over, and the rest is just berm, dirt piled up about 20 feet high from that concrete dam to the east, which is maybe a couple of 100 feet till it comes up to the base of the hill, which would be an extension of Mount Jumbo. And so a lot of people looked at all the displays in the auditorium and were quite impressed with the things that they plan on doing. They want to either sort of leave it natural or put in parks or walkways or bike lanes, really do a lot to it, or just leave it. The only other thing I've noticed in the valley is I think Grant Creek had mountain lions, right?
Not sure I know what you're referring to.
Oh, well, have you seen any mountain lions? I thought I saw one on the paper.
Well, we had some mountain lions in Grant Creek that ate a couple of deer behind some homes, yeah.
Well, I live near Rattlesnake School, and I noticed some really large paw prints in the snow in my driveway. And I had a neighbor walk by with the largest dog that I'd seen in the neighborhood, and we had the dog put his paw in those footprints, and it was footprints of the animal were much bigger than a dog. And so I'm wondering if maybe we haven't been visited by a mountain lion. And I wouldn't be surprised, because we have wonderful deer for feed for mountain lions. Thank you.
Cora Shepherd, Moose King Gully. We haven't actually had any meetings for the past few months, but we have one scheduled for April 3rd at 5:30 in the Jack Reedy Room, and it's a joint meeting with South 39th Street. Yeah, so, yeah.
Nick Shantz, River Road. We actually had our meeting last night, so it's, fresh. We talked with the folks from the YWCA who are hoping to move into our neighborhood on 3rd Street. It's sort of a cool opportunity. We've got the YWCA, we've got the food bank, we've got the Salvation Army, we've got the Garden City Harvest Farm. We've got a lot of cool sort of social service folks, organizations moving into that side of our neighborhood, so that's kind of a cool place. We talked a lot about sort of traffic in our neighborhood with this Russell Street construction and how that's going to change how we get in and out of our neighborhood. We talked about some trail light or some street lighting, like overhead lights that they put in. We talked about one of the struggles we have in our neighborhood. The kids in our neighborhood go to Hawthorne School, even though it's on the other side of Reserve. It's not a great way for those kids to get there on foot. There's no sidewalks on 3rd. There's not a great way to get there other than walking along Reserve and 3rd. So we're trying to get creative and figure out ways to make that better. I also have one of the nice things. The folks from MUD always come to our meetings, which is kind of cool. He doesn't live in our neighborhood, but they're always there, and they wrote a community forum note thanking us for our support of their grant. I just want to read that and I'll pass it around. Thank you. Thank you for all your continued investment of time and resources throughout our community. We're looking forward to being the host for a new Sparkle the Glass Pathway in Missoula from the MUD team. So I'll pass this around, but I thought that was nice, and they're definitely great neighbors to have as well. And that's all I've got.
replacing Louis Stephenson, Katie Sullivan, so we'll get down the bottom of the barrel. Our last meeting was on March 12th, and at that meeting, we heard from Pete Howard, who's the principal at Texas, to reiterate what he discussed that we heard from our team tonight in support of the operations levy. We had a bit of a discussion on whether or not we should use the flyer versus a postcard for the announcement of our general meeting. And after a lot of discussion, we arrived at the notion that the flyer presents more information than the simple postcard. So that would be coming for our next general meeting, which would be in May. I noticed that your neighborhood council meeting here on the 3rd. I just got a brief notice that our next neighborhood leadership council meeting will be on the 3rd here at the next. So it might be a very interesting, crowded session. I may be incorrect with our meeting.
Well, let me just say that yesterday and the day before, between Karen and I, there were 3 meetings each day. Karen made 2 one day and I made 1, and the other day I made 2 and she made 1. So it's been very busy and challenging to find a date where something isn't already going on.
We appreciate your service.
Yes. At that March 12th meeting, we decided that our next council meeting will be over summer year, and that our springtime meeting, general meeting, will be May 1st, definitely at Access School. We reviewed the overlay plan for the university area with regard to structures, size, and housing in the area, and we drafted a letter of support as that proceeds to bureaucracy. And then finally, we talked a little bit about Mansion Park, where there has been some initial landscaping and other modifications there, and we may be seeking grant and additional projects to help move that along in cooperation with those agencies in the city.
Ed Nolder, Riverfront Neighborhood. We had a leadership meeting just down the hall in the Fraser room, and we had a presentation from Nick Holloway from Smart 911. We also had a presentation from Logan McGinnis from the Missoula Waters. He's a Missoula Water Utilities engineer on the water main projects that are going on. We also had another presentation from Katie from Big Sky Public Relations that was here earlier on the Russell Street project. And we also had another presentation on Preserve Historic Missoula, about preserving some of the historic buildings. And lastly, we had another presentation from Kevin Richland from Willard School on their remodeling of the school that's going on right now. And we have plans for a general meeting on May 22nd at Soville Park Pavilion, which is just west of the Osprey Stadium. And that's all we have. Thank you.
Markham Clements, Franklin Fort. So we had our large general neighborhood meeting about a month ago, and I don't believe this group has met since then. And at that meeting, a big portion of that meeting was dedicated to discussing new sidewalks within the neighborhood and how that relates to public health. We also elected 3 new members to our leadership team, myself included. The leadership team met about 2 weeks ago here, just down the hall here, and largely just to select our roles within the leadership team. And that's sort of the big things that are happening in the neighborhood that I know of up to this point, but we did have some pretty strong representation, respectively, at the Neighborhood Watch meeting a couple nights ago, so we should see an uptick in our participation in that. Thank you.
Kathleen Gamar from Rose Park. We had our leadership meeting yesterday, and we chose a new place to have our meetings, and that was at the senior center. Everybody approved of it and said that we would try that for a while. We seemed to like the accommodations, and easy to get there and get out of there, and a little bit easier than over here on this side of town. We had Mike Painter come and talk to us about the Neighborhood Watch Update program, and he reviewed what the Neighborhood Watch is doing, and also told us that they have a new governing board of directors, of which he was elected treasurer, and then Tony Rollin is the chair, and secretary is Mark McClements. And then we discussed the Midtown changes. Again, we kind of reviewed the different changes that are happening over by the mall area, the new bus system that was reported to us at other meetings. And then I gave the community forum report, and we also discussed some new ideas that we've got for better working with each other as far as the Neighborhood Watch program goes, and also communication. We went over the bylaws and approved most of the changes. We had one big one that we need to have changed, and then we got homework to do that, and then we will be voting on it at the next meeting. I'm not sure, Karen, if we decided when our next meeting would be. Yeah.
Bird Limmer, Grand Creek. We did have some mountain lions active behind some of the homes in the Prospect and Prospect Meadows neighborhoods, and we thank the Montana Department of Fish, Wildlife, and Parks for responding and determining that the lions had left the area, and so they'll be back. And as long as they don't get too comfortable around our homes, they're welcome to enjoy the deer, which they seem to find quite tasty. So we also want to thank the members of the Montana Elders for a Livable Tomorrow, and the Department of Natural Resources and Conservation for sponsoring a excellent presentation on preparing your home for wildfire. So we know there will be a fire in Grant Creek, we just don't know when. And we don't know exactly where it'll burn, but we know there will be a fire in Grant Creek in the coming years, and so we're hoping that the homeowners take advantage of the opportunities they have to prepare their home, because there is substantial research to show that you can prepare your home for a wildfire, and even in a very serious fire, there's an excellent chance your home will survive if you've taken the proper steps. So thankful for that. Thank you.
Jeff Stevens, South 39th Street Neighborhood Council. As was previously noted, we are having a joint leadership team meeting with the Moose County Gully Neighborhood Council, and that will be on April the 3rd. And that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Anthony Joe, Captain John Mullen. We had our leadership team meeting just this Tuesday, and we actually had MCPS come in and also talk about the levee. We talked about the second entrance for 44 Ranch, and I believe Mary McCree from Development Services will be coming into our next leadership team meeting to help figure out all that and answer any questions that we had. And Leanna, another member of our leadership team, updated us on fundraising efforts for the 44 Ranch Park, and you could actually now go to the Friends of Missoula Parks website and donate directly to that cause if you choose. I strongly recommend that. Please support our park for the playground equipment. And that is, I think that's all we had. So, yeah.
Marisa Phillips, Heart of Missoula. We had a homeowner, Dave Spildy, come in and talk about the Highway 200 underpass east of the Ben Hughes addition right at East Missoula. The Montana Rail Link is building another line well, there's an existing line that they're going to start using there, and the concern is right now the underpass into East Missoula, there's really no room for bicyclists or pedestrians, and we're not sure. I mean, he wanted to try to get in touch with them, and while they're building that or refurbishing that other lane for the train, to try and get it safer for pedestrians in the area. We also talked about the bus tour, which is coming up, so excited about that. And our general meeting is August 16th. We haven't decided on a location quite yet, but getting newsletter ready. And we also discussed transient activity in the heart of Missoula neighborhood, because it's an ongoing issue and some things are happening. Our next meeting will have Officer Ethan Smith come and speak to us again about some solutions, and the city is working on it, so hopefully we can have less crime and a few less problems and help them at the same time. That's it.
Jack Walton, Miller Creek. We had our leadership meeting on March 6th at Station 5 Firehouse on Lower Miller Creek. And we had Missoula County Public Schools come and talk about the new Jeanette Rankin School that's going in Maloney Ranch. And the one thing is they were planning on being in by August of 18, but that's been delayed. And it'll be about Thanksgiving that they'll be moving into the school. They'll have an open house for families and parents in the neighborhood so that we can check out the new school. Also, there was some discussion came up about incidents that could occur at school, and they have a policy in place. They have counselors on site. They monitor and work with students and try to be proactive and have people available to deal with situations so that there's nothing occur like what happened in Parkland, Florida. And that was kind of interesting to find out, and they invited us to check the website out and look at some of the policies and things that they have on that policy that they have in place. We also had the Bear Foundation come and talk to us about the bear buffer zones. They're looking at redoing some of the maps, especially in some of the areas that border Dean Stone Mountain and the draws and the gullies that come down and that type of thing. And we do have a lot of bear moving through the area, go down to the Bitterroot River. So they'll be looking at that. And then we talked about updating our bylaws, and Jane has done a great job on simplifying the bylaws. Thank you, Jane, and we're looking forward of amending our bylaws. And we talked about having a cleanup day because there's a couple of people in the neighborhood area looking at participating in the cleanup, and we tabled that for now because everybody is kind of run thin, and we don't have a lot of members coming to our meetings right now, so we kind of asked, and we'll be looking for someone to champion a cleanup day. Also, I want to let people know about Linda Vista had a homeowners meeting Tuesday night. Jane came for a little bit. We had about 60 people there, and a couple of issues came up. We had our city representatives there, Julie Armstrong and
Stacy Anderson.
Yeah, Stacy Anderson was there, and our county supervisor, or county commissioner was there. So good representation, and they asked questions, and if there was any issues and concerns. A couple of issues came up as the lower Miller Creek Road right now that goes by the Linda Vista Golf Course, where Linda Vista Road comes into Lower Miller Creek. There's a stop sign on Lower Miller Creek, and so the suggestion was to change that stop sign and put it on Linda Vista, because right now there's a yield sign on Linda Vista, and people just come down and make an automatic right turn onto Lower Miller Creek. With the school being further out on Lower Miller Creek Road, it makes sense to make Lower Miller Creek the through road. And so that was a lot of discussion about that. A lot of discussion about the 45-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. That's between Linda Vista Boulevard and Jeff Drive. When the 45-mile-an-hour speed limit sign was put in up there, Jeff Drive did not exist. Now we have Jeff Drive, and there's 4 amendments to the Linda Vista subdivision up there. And that totals about 200 homes now that we're adding traffic on. And so people see that 45-mile-an-hour speed limit sign, so they start speeding up. Well, people are slowing down to make a turn onto Jeff Drive for that area. And so there's been some close calls that way. And then people trying to get out. These cars all of a sudden punching the gas pedal or speeding up, and somebody's trying to get out onto Upper Miller Creek Road. So that was a big issue. And then we had some people talk about speeding on Joy and Alicia and drives, and there was a little discussion about maybe traffic calming devices and some of those type of things. And the thing is that that Upper Linda Vista, Miller Creek neighborhood, there's 5 county parks, and so right now, part of Linda Vista homeowners group with those 5 counties, there's a special, or it's a recreation special improvement district put in by the county to help fund maintenance of those parks. And so there's some issues of being able to run out of money up there maintaining the parks as they coordinate with the county on maintenance and grass cutting of the parks and watering, that type of thing. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Mark Foss, Southgate Triangle. Of course, we have a business section of Brooks and the business section of South Avenue, so we have quite a bit of building going on, building banks and car washes and apartments and other businesses. We're going to have our general meeting April 11th, and it'll be at the Southgate Community Meeting Room at 7 o'clock. They started building the bike skills area in Bellevue Park, and unbeknownst to us, they clear-cutted the 17 trees that were at the corner of 39th and Paxson there, which were pretty much the only trees in the park. But we have a letter coming from the Southgate Triangle leadership team and going to the Parks Department and to the Urban Forestry Department about that. So, and that pretty much concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Now, Heidi West will give the City Council liaison report.
So many things have happened since the last community forum meeting, but I quickly wanted to follow up on Bert's comment about the Firewise planning, I guess I could call it. We had a presentation by Jack Cohen in the Committee of the Whole yesterday, so that was the 21st, and that's publicly available. So if you're interested in the condensed version, it was only an hour, and it could have been much longer because it was fascinating, of things you can do and resources there are for protecting your home from wildfire. I recommend you find it in our archives and watch it. And you can always call to have your home assessed too. And that number is 406-542-4321. So since the last meeting, There have been a few exciting things that have happened, and the biggest thing that's happening is that the city is gearing up for, the season of being able to do street work and utility work and all of those fun things. So we've had a lot of resolutions come through for, just to be able to purchase all the street fixing things, from asphalt to striping, and then also things for like water main replacements. So they're gearing up for a really busy season. Another big thing that happened was that we adopted changes to the Missoula Municipal Smoking Ordinance, and the largest change was that it recognized the shift to alternative nicotine delivery devices, so like your e-cigarettes and vaping and all those sorts of things, and included it, but then also incorporated rules that our Parks Department already had regarding smoking in public parks, and all put it all together in one ordinance, and then also allows businesses to more effectively restrict smoking within their operating spaces. The other thing that affects everyone is that there is a resolution made to investigate stretch energy building codes, and this is personally, I think, very exciting because it would incentivize folks to build beyond our current energy codes and be more energy efficient. And so our city building department basically is looking into how to make that possible and enable people to make better choices for energy efficiency. And then as a part of some of the ADU changes that are coming, there was a change in how water lines are connected to ADUs, and this is, I think exciting. And what it allows you to do is to connect to existing infrastructure instead of putting in a whole new delivery line. And that has a positive impact on our streets too, because it means we're not constantly tearing up streets to put in additional water lines and having to resurface them and repave them, and it'll keep our streets nicer for longer. And then on a couple of things that have happened in individual wards, Ward 1, which is my ward, and it also affects the whole town. Because we vacated an alley for the new library, but it did have additional conditions added because it's in this transitional zone between the urban core and then also this really nice historic neighborhood. There were some conditions added to make sure that there's boulevard sidewalks, so the sidewalks that have the buffer of trees and grass between the road and where pedestrians walk, and that was just to keep the neighborhood feel. So that would be along Front Street, keep the neighborhood feel, keep people that are walking in a comfortable space. And then along the side streets, Washington and Jefferson, boulevard sidewalks are recommended where they are possible because there are some site-specific issues with slope and that make things hard. And then in wards 4 and 6, the Montana Rail Link Park process is chugging along. And so Dick Anderson Construction was hired as the to do pre-construction management oversight, and that's basically getting all the bid documents ready for the eventual park that's going to be happening there. And then there's a public hearing coming up on an annexation in Ward 5, which is the Invamere subdivision, and that's going to be on Monday, March the 26th. And if you're interested, there's more, you can look at the archives of previous meetings and then give public comments during the city council meeting. I think those are all the super exciting things that happened. So let me know if you have any questions.
So, yes, Doug.
Doug Grimm, Upper Rattlesnake. I'd have a question. The street on the east side of the library is Jefferson, and it's very narrow. I think it's a two-lane street, and I've tried to drive it, but if someone else is coming down, they have to back out. And I was wondering if that could be made a two-lane street that's as wide as a normal street, by pulling land out of, in other words, giving more property to the paving area, and less by 10 feet. That would be, take 10 feet away from the library.
I doubt that that change could be made right now, but I think I'd have to look back at the site plan. I think currently it has both sides have parallel parking too, so which narrows the street considerably. And I'm not sure that that stays the same way, but I have to look back at the site maps.
It just seemed to me it'd be nice to have
It would be nice.
streets all the way around the library that you could go in both directions on very easily.
Yeah, I agree.
So, when I go to City Council Monday night, I'm going to discuss the presentations and the election of a new member to the leadership team, and that will pretty much, I think, summarize the meeting, unless there's something else someone else feels that's critical to share. Okay. I think with that, the next meeting is going to be of the Community Forum will be on April 26th. Ray Ayton will be the moderator. And with that, I adjourn this meeting of Community Forum. Thank you.